Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Arapahoe County and Tri-County Health Department Business Roundtable. We've created these roundtables to provide COVID-19 related updates to the business community and to give you a chance to ask questions about safely operating your business during the pandemic. This is our third event in this series, and last week we had some great questions from local businesses across Arapahoe County. Our goal today is to provide some updates on the current Safer at Home public health order and also let you know about some possible next steps from both the state and the county. We'd also like to share some resources that can help you and your business and also give you a chance to ask some questions of us. Hearing your questions and understanding your challenges will help us better provide the support you need during this challenging time. My name is Chris, and I'll be your moderator today. If you've never joined us for a telephone town hall before, the process is simple. If you'd like to ask a question, simply dial *3 on your phone, and one of our operators will come online to take your question. If you've joined us through our website, you can also type your question in the box below the player. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible today. We'd like you to know that this Business Roundtable is brought to you by the Arapahoe Douglas Workforce Development Board and is funded through the Arapahoe County CARES program. That program is distributing more than $114 million in funding from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. We'll learn a little bit more about that program a little bit later today. On Monday this week, Governor Jared Polis announced some additional changes to the Safer at Home public health order. Those changes go into effect soon and include specific instructions for the opening of residential summer camps, indoor events such as conferences and receptions, and also some outdoor events. Bars will be permitted to open on a limited scale, and personal services can expand for things such as facials and beard trimming. Helping us navigate all of these requirements is Melissa Sager. She is the Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs Manager for the Tri-County Health Department. She's been instrumental in helping us understand the public health orders and what they mean specifically for businesses within Arapahoe County. Melissa, the governor outlined several important items during his news conference on Monday. We can break it down a little bit and begin with what's changing in the current Safer at Home public health order, and then maybe look a little bit more broadly. Will that work?
That sounds good.
Great. Well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
Glad to be here. So I'd like to talk about what we know and then really briefly what's still outstanding. So I'll start with the updated order that we expect any day. Chris, as you mentioned, there is draft guidance currently out for outdoor gatherings, indoor gatherings. Both of those would be your receptions, concerts, auctions, other type of events that happen indoor and outdoor, as well as that draft guidance for children's overnight camps. The state issued this draft guidance on Monday and is taking feedback until close of business today. You can find that information on the state's website, and I'm just going to pull that up really quickly so I can tell you the exact address. Sorry about that. It is covid19.colorado.gov, and those draft guidance documents are up for feedback, and the state will be using that feedback from the public to inform the finalized order that we expect to see tomorrow. In addition to those subjects that there's draft guidance for, we also anticipate possible information on entertainment at restaurants and other events, so some additional guidance there, as well as some general cleanup that may include adjustments to the number of folks able to gather in existing businesses that are open under the existing order. So we're anxious to see those updates from the state. Do expect them tomorrow or Friday at the latest. The governor also spoke about the next phase of reopening. It will be called Protect Our Neighbors. We anticipate it to go into effect in the beginning of July. The current order expires June 30th, and we anticipate this next order to start July 1st. It's going to contain, we think, it will likely have all of the levels that we have seen so far. So the stay at home, safer at home, and then protect your neighbor. And the ability to move to the next level will be based on local conditions. And the governor spoke about this briefly, but he said that it will depend on transmission rates, so the number of cases, but it'll also depend on the county's ability to treat COVID-19, so hospital capacity and personal protective equipment, and the ability to test and trace. So that's what your local public health agency, the Tri-County Health Department, does. And we are building our capacity now to be able to trace. And we are enhancing testing across our counties as it becomes available. So the ability to move into greater opening will depend on all of those things combined. It does look like the order will allow for gatherings of up to 500 people if those case counts are low enough and the ability to treat, test, and trace is there in the county. Just want to highlight a few things that we still don't know. For this next order that we anticipate coming tomorrow or Friday, we're not sure if existing businesses will be expanded. So we don't know if gyms, restaurants, spas will be able to host more people than they can currently. We're also not sure if the county variance process will change with this new update. We don't anticipate it to change, but there may be additional guidance there. With Protect Your Neighbors, we do not know what the local variance process will look like into the next order, so we're anxious to see what the state puts out, again, talking about the beginning of July. We're not sure what authority will rest with the local public health agency. So will the Tri-County Health Department be reviewing plans to reopen or be able to grant variances? We're unsure. And we're not sure about the exact triggers that will move counties from one phase to the other. So what is the exact number of cases that will allow a county to move to greater opening? How much testing and contact tracing will a county have to have before they can move on to that next phase? So we do anticipate seeing that from the state in the coming weeks. Again, an updated Safer at Home order tomorrow or Friday, the new Protect Our Neighbors phase starting July 1st. We do not anticipate the entire state to move into extreme greater openings on July 1st. But we do anticipate the process by which counties will be able to move. So that'll be very helpful and allow folks to monitor cases and testing themselves to understand where we fall, where the county falls, and where we're moving toward. So lots of new information coming from the state in the coming days and weeks, and we encourage you to keep in touch as you hear things, reaching out to our Business Reopening Task Force. And I'll just quickly say their email address. It is covidbusinessrecovery@tchd.org, and we're happy to provide updates and answer your questions along the way.
Wonderful, Melissa. Thank you. There's so many moving pieces. We always appreciate your expertise with this. If those of you have just joined us, if you have a question, remember you can just dial *3 on your phone to be connected to one of our operators. We'd love to bring you on live in just a moment, and we've also got a lot of online questions that are coming in, and we will get to those questions in just a moment. But first, we'd like to get an update on the variance request sent by Arapahoe County to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. That request was submitted last week and seeks a variance for several industries, including indoor malls, gyms, houses of worship, restaurants, and movie theaters. Here with an update is Arapahoe County Director of Communication and Administrative Services, Michelle Halstead. Michelle, good afternoon.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. So, yes, the Arapahoe County is actually able to seek a variance from the existing Safer at Home public health order, but we had to submit several things. Primarily was a suppression plan that was approved by our local public health agency, all the hospitals in the region, the county commissioners, and it had to certify that we had a low case count or a downward trajectory of cases. And we also had to articulate how we would manage our cases through some of the efforts Melissa mentioned in terms of contact tracing and personal responsibility, and what the county would also do if our case counts climbed if a variance was approved. So the board specifically requested that gyms, houses of worship, and restaurants be allowed to operate at 50% of the fire code capacity, subject to strict social distancing and sanitation measures, and that's different than the current Safer at Home measure. The board also asked to open indoor malls, such as the Town Center of Aurora, with restrictions similar to Jefferson and Douglas counties. We are waiting to hear from the state whether or not our variance will be approved. They have a very rigorous review process, and they're taking anywhere from 7 to 14 days. So we're waiting and looking at other types of industries in the meantime that we could seek additional variances for, and all of those are really subject to the public health orders that continue to be revised and edited. So there's more to come from the Arapahoe County perspective on how we implement reopening plans that best meet the needs of our communities and help us recover from this pandemic in a responsible manner.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that update. We'd love to have you stay online in case we get some more questions on the variance, and I see a couple of the questions actually were probably just answered with your update, so thank you for that. We would like to start to jump into some of these questions now. We've got a lot online, but if you'd like to talk to us live, we'd love to hear from you. Just dial *3 and you'll get right on with us. Our first question for Melissa today is, can you talk about the mask requirements for restaurant employees and customers?
Absolutely. So currently, under the state order, employees in any public-facing business, any interaction with the public, must wear a mask. Employees must also wear a mask if they have contact with coworkers. And so if you're working in close contact with the public or coworkers, you are required to wear a cloth face covering under the current public health orders. Customers, there's a little bit more leeway. For some businesses, like personal services, so your haircut, your spa treatment, your nails, you have to wear a mask in those settings. The customers have to wear a mask. The reasoning behind that is because close contact of within 6 feet cannot be avoided for those services. Someone has to be close to you. And so we've asked, the state has asked that customers wear masks in those settings too. We do anticipate some adjustments to that in limited circumstances. Chris, you mentioned this at the beginning, but to be able to provide those services that require folks to remove their mask, like a facial or a beard trimming or face waxing. And we do anticipate that to be addressed in this next order tomorrow or Friday. Again, just allowing folks to remove their masks for those limited settings, limited circumstances. In other businesses, it's strongly urged for customers to wear their masks. So in your place of worship, at your grocery store, or other activities, you want to have that mask on. It really protects other people from the potential spread from asymptomatic people who just may not know. And so that's strongly urged in other settings. I will just say that within those settings, within your employment as a customer, outdoor recreation, if you are 6 feet away from people at all times, there's no potential that someone will cross your path or you'll bump into someone. Me, for instance, sitting in my office alone right now, I do not have a mask on. And so you can remove that mask when you're far away from people, but it's strongly urged when you're in that close contact and required for any employees having contact with the public or other coworkers.
That's great information. Going to a retail question now. When will dressing rooms be allowed in retail stores?
This has actually recently come up for us. It looks like all of our retailers had their dressing rooms closed and have just started thinking about reopening them. Under the current order, they are not prohibited, but there are some precautions that need to be taken if they're going to be used. For instance, under the current order, any shared spaces or equipment need to be sanitized after each use. So if a dressing room is open in a retail establishment, it needs to be sanitized, wiped down with a disinfecting wipe. Any of those shared surfaces, the handle, the seat in the dressing room, etc., would need to be wiped down after every use. But they are permitted just so long as they're sanitized.
Wonderful. In-home business question now. This caller says, I own my own company that supports in-home events like food service and bartending. Can I start booking jobs?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So we expect this. I'd encourage you to take a look at the state's website, again, covid19.colorado.gov, and you'll see as soon as you go to that page under the updates, there is this draft guidance for indoor and outdoor events. This is very broad. We're talking about all the unique events, your birthday party, graduation party, wedding reception, other type of indoor and outdoor events. They can be catered, and there is some guidance in there in this event guidance about what catering can look like. One of the things that's still prohibited is buffet style, and within these spaces for indoor and outdoor events, folks are required to maintain that 6-foot social distancing from folks outside of their household. So it looks a lot different than what we're used to, but those events under these limited numbers, and you'll see in that guidance, depending on the size of your space, will depend on how many folks you can host, but they can be catered. Caterers should be strictly adhering to the guidance for restaurants and food services. So take a look at the state's website. If you have questions, please reach out to our Business Reopening Task Force. We're happy to help you navigate how you can operate. But starting tomorrow, these events will be allowed under the updated order.
That's great. And we're going to learn a little bit more about the Business Reopening Task Force in just a moment. First, let's take another question. This one is, can common areas in apartment complexes open like children's playrooms, grilling areas, libraries, and clubhouses as long as social distancing can be met?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a tough one because it depends for each of those activities, and it depends on your community and facility specifically. So playgrounds under the existing order can be open. Libraries are permitted to operate through curbside delivery. We're worried about folks touching things, lingering as they do in a library. But there's some restrictions. So a playground can only have 25 kids maximum. Again, encouraging social distancing on the playground. And so if it's a smaller area that's often crowded and difficult to keep social distancing, we have asked our local, the local folks who maintain those parks to keep those areas closed if it's difficult to maintain distance in that space, if it's difficult to have folks here. And so while they're permitted, they may be closed in your area just depending on your community conditions, but they can operate. I'm thinking of common spaces more generally, game rooms, things like that, subject to the specific requirements of the order depending on the activity. So 10 people indoors. With this new guidance coming tomorrow or Friday, you can use those spaces for increased gathering depending on the size.
Great, thank you. This next question, I'm sure, is being inspired by the beautiful weather we've been having outside. This question is, are all photography businesses able to operate under the personal services guidance? I'm sure that there's a lot of seniors in high school that are getting ready to take their portraits for the year.
So the tough part about personal services is that masking is required by both parties for that. We do think that photography can occur under the general requirements for limited gatherings. We ask that folks keep their mask on, the photographer especially as an employee in a public-facing business required to keep that mask on. But for the folks that you're photographing, keeping that 6-foot distance at all times, mandatory. And then we had some questions come up about infant photography and the inability to wear a mask, just keeping your 6-foot social distance in those cases, having the parents present to be able to make adjustments so that you're not touching anyone. So just adapting to keeping your distance to ensure safety in those situations, but they can occur no groups larger than 10 for that activity.
Great. We're seeing that a lot more people are joining us, so some of our repeat questions may sound familiar to some of you, but this next question is, with new indoor event guidance, let's try that again, with new indoor event guidance coming, what businesses will be allowed to open? I know you've touched on that, Melissa, but if you could give maybe a brief overview of what we can expect in the next couple of days.
Definitely. So currently under the order, any business that's not specifically called out in the order can operate so long as they're adhering to that 10-person limit, which we know is very prohibitive for businesses. This is one of the areas that we are unsure will be adjusted. So we know that the state will be taking a very close look at the industries currently called out, possibly adjusting numbers within those industries. For these other industries that aren't specifically called out, we don't know if that 10-person number may be increased more generally for unmentioned businesses. And so it's going to depend on your specific activity. We do encourage you, and as Chris said, we'll talk about the Business Reopening Task Force, but we encourage you to reach out because we have experienced in a lot of cases that our businesses you can fit under an existing category. And so how do you alter your business practices to fit within one of these existing categories and implement procedures that maybe look different from what you do currently, but allow you to operate? And I have a ton of random examples, but the first one that comes to mind today, buffets are prohibited under the order, and we've seen some of our buffet restaurants adjust their model so that they can operate just as a restaurant under those conditions. And so we encourage you to reach out to talk about where you fit and how you can operate, especially with the new changes coming tomorrow or Friday.
Thank you so much. And you just mentioned it, so this is a good entree. The Tri-County Health Department has a business reopening task force that has been helping businesses across Arapahoe County. We'd like to bring on Sue Hauk from Tri-County Health to talk a little bit more about the task force and how they can help you with some of your questions. Sue, are you able to join us now?
Yes. Can you hear me okay, Chris?
Sure can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that Melissa mentioned. And we are available by email and phone number. And you can actually get to that information just from our main website, tchd.org. And if you click on the Safer at Home business support box, that will take you to our page. And that page has a variety of things on there, including our email address and our phone number of 720-713-6030. If you're able to email us, that's great, because that's a way for us to reply to your email and send some of the links that we have been sharing from the state that gives you the guidance and the updates and all of that. Also, right now on that page, our business support page, you'll find that draft guidance for indoor and outdoor events and residential camps and the links to provide feedback by today at 5. And I know Melissa mentioned you can do that on the state site, but we also wanted to make it easy from our page to link to that too. So again, if you just go to tchd.org and click on that business support box, that'll take you to a lot of information. We also host a Q&A similar to this every Friday at 9:30 a.m. and it's more Zoom style. And so the registration information is also on that page. One more thing I wanted to mention about that page, you kind of scroll down to about the middle. There's a box that says guidance, and if you click on that, you'll be able to get to a COVID-19 social distancing calculator. And that's helpful for businesses as they're thinking about their square footage and the 6 feet of social distancing. And especially we've gotten so many questions about capacity and this is the size of my business and how many people can we have. And so you'll still want to follow the max number that the public health order will be stating when it comes out in these next couple of days. But this will also help you to calculate based on the social distancing, the 6 feet social distancing requirements. So just wanted to make you aware of that social distancing calculator that's on our webpage. And I think Melissa mentioned, a lot of the links that we're sending out to businesses really come from that covid19.colorado.gov, the safer, and if you click on Safer at Home, there's on the left-hand side, a bunch of gray boxes with listings of all of the different businesses. So if you click there, you'll be able to get some good information on your particular business. And the last thing I would mention is, we're just getting lots of questions on capacity. So we're looking forward to that clarity here in the next couple of days. Thank you for letting me speak about our business task force. We're just happy to help, and we're here to support you and answer your questions. So please reach out to us either by email or phone number. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us, Sue. We really appreciate that. Let's get back to a couple more questions, and Melissa will bring you back on. The first one is there any recommended training a business should use to train its staff?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So as Sue just mentioned, we have a lot of resources on our business task force page, but the state also has a variety of resources, and you should be able to link from either one. There's no particular course, but there are a lot of guidance materials that you can supply to your staff and work through those documents together. So we encourage you to take a look at guidance documents like sanitation, but also the specific guidance for your industry. And we encourage you to be innovative in your approach and encourage your staff to get involved in that approach as well. So more of a conversation, working through the information together and deciding which approach is the best fit for your specific business. So you'll see as you look through those guidance documents that some of the provisions are fairly broad. And so what do you do to address keeping employees safe, keeping customers safe, sanitation, distancing, et cetera? How do you address that in your business? And then really talking to your staff about how to adhere to those requirements and upkeep those things that you're doing to protect folks.
Wonderful, thank you. We have another online question. This one comes from Allie. Based on the information provided on the state site about protecting our neighbors, it consistently talks about communities. What is the definition of community in this case? Is it counties? Is it cities? Is it towns? Can you provide some clarity for us on that, Melissa?
Definitely, and it's a really great question because I know initially when I was talking about this, I did say county, but that's a great point because if you look through those documents on Protect Your Neighbor, through those same links that we mentioned for the draft guidance, and if you take a look through the plan that they have, this is one of the things that's open-ended here, one of the unknowns. And it's good that it's left open here because what the state has said is we can take a regional approach. It may be possible that a certain area versus the whole county. It may be that we join with other counties to take a Denver metro approach to certain issues. And so that's one of the things that is still being decided. The state is also soliciting feedback on this draft Protect Our Neighbors next phase. Same links again, covid19.colorado.gov or tchd.org through our business page. You can provide your feedback on that and what you would like to see happen in that space.
Wonderful. Yeah, I know there's been a lot of questions about this next phase that we're going into, so thank you for providing that clarity. Next, we have a question from Facebook, and this comes from Jennifer, and she asks, are you required to wear a mask while working out? I'm sure many of our gym and personal training studios are wondering about that question.
Yeah, that's one of the unique situations. Folks are strongly urged to wear a mask. We ask folks, as you're coming into the gym, and I guess I'll say it's going to be dependent on the facility that you frequent as well. But we ask that folks have their mask on as they're coming and going, as you're walking from one area of the gym to the next. if you're going to the locker room or restroom, anytime you're moving that it's unpredictable when you could cross paths with someone, that's when we want you to have your mask on. And so if you're engaged in an activity that involves a lot of movement and you may cross paths with someone, we do want you to be wearing your mask during those activities. If you are 6 feet from anyone else, it's a controlled setting, preferably more than 6 feet. You're not going to be moving uncontrollably throughout, doing circuits or things like that. Then you can take that mask off for that limited activity. But having it with you in case you need to move and for coming and going, we want you to have that mask on whenever you can. But we do know that folks need to work out. It's harder to breathe with the mask on. And so as long as you're really controlling who you have contact with, you can remove that so long as you're away from everyone else.
Thank you. This next question, I think, is a wonderful question. It's also very broad-based, so we'll try to make it a little bit more palatable for you. Have you heard about any best practices businesses are using to reopen safely? Are any of them using technology? I think a lot of people would love any tips or techniques that you've heard of that are being successful so they can do the same.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm not sure if I'll let Sue chime in, or honestly, Chris or Michelle, if you have heard of any innovative approaches. I know at a state level, monitoring movement, I'm trying to think of innovative technology that folks have used. There are a lot of innovative approaches that people have taken for things like reservation systems. We've seen folks take innovative approaches on separating space and really controlling the flow of people traffic to ensure no contact. So businesses are definitely taking innovative approaches on a wide variety of things to adhere to the requirements. Chris, Michelle, Sue, are you hearing of innovative technologies that folks are using?
Michelle is letting us know she's got some information. Michelle?
Well, one of the things we're doing at Arapahoe County, for example, is related to our clerk and recorder's office. We've always had an appointment system that we've used for certain features, and because of the pandemic, we've actually opened up that reservation system to a wider variety of services. And so residents can go online and book appointments for their license plates, even recording functions, and then they don't have to come in until they get a text message from the county staff saying that their appointment's now ready. And we've employed that across all of our motor vehicle offices, and it's been fairly successful. Sue, do you have anything else to add?
I do. Can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
So I would just, again, just thinking about those resources we have on our business support website, we have a business reopening checklist. And so that's just been, it may not be an innovative technology, but it's just been really nice to share with businesses so they can think through, having the proper signage and having someone designated to kind of be that contact for things related to COVID and all of that. So just making sure to check out that business reopening checklist has been helpful for everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you both for chiming in on that. Michelle, while we still have you around, we do have a question from Jeannie who asks, if I want to apply for a variance for my business, how do I do that? Who do I contact?
That's a really great question. The variances that are allowed by the state are not for specific businesses. They're actually industry specific. So the county has currently applied for variances for restaurants, houses of worship, gyms, and indoor malls. We're looking at other industries as well, be it larger scale events, potentially larger outdoor gatherings, even as Melissa talked about earlier, other businesses being able to open beyond that 10-person limit if they're not specifically in the order. So what I would say is if you look at the current public health guidance and you're not one of those industries and we can't quite figure out where you would fit, you can actually email Arapahoe County by askac at arapahogov.com. And we send us your requests so we can hear more about what your specific businesses are, needs are, and how we might be able to roll that up into a bigger industry ask for a variance.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of confusion on that, and that certainly helps us understand the process much better. Got another question from Melissa, kind of based on some of the other things we've been hearing. Any insight on bars reopening? Will guidance be similar to restaurants, but no longer necessary to serve food? Can you give a little bit of clarity on that?
Yes, I think that is one of the things that we will see in the updated order tomorrow or Friday. The governor alluded to this in a press conference he did on Monday. We think that bars without food will be able to operate at 25% capacity. It probably does look very similar to restaurant guidance on how to operate, but the order hasn't been released yet, so we don't know all of the details, but we do expect that guidance to be contained in there, again, allowing bars without food to operate at 25% capacity.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of calls specific to the orders that are coming out tomorrow, so thank you for sharing each time when we get those questions. I want to switch gears a little bit now. As you've heard me say at the top of the hour, this roundtable has been brought to you by the Arapahoe County CARES program, which is distributing more than $114 million in federal funding to county. Here to talk about the CARES grants is Stephanie Mufik, the Business Services Supervisor for Arapahoe Douglas Works. Stephanie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chris. Yes, I'm here to talk about the Arapahoe County $6 million grant program that's actually being launched on Monday, June 22nd. It's targeted to small and medium-sized businesses to help ease the current economic burden resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're hoping that it's going to provide some support to retain jobs in the community. So there's two grant categories available. The first one is business interruption, and this is for businesses that employ from 1 to 500 people, and there are different levels of funding amounts available for those employees or those employee counts. But that grant can be used to support operational needs in the business, such as lease or mortgage payments, utility expenses, payroll expense, supplies and services or materials needed to operate. There's also another grant that's called our Infrastructure PPE grant, and this one's unique because it's actually a reimbursement grant that can go up to $20,000, and this will help fund a business, or actually not fund, but reimburse a business that has had to purchase PPP or infrastructure to get the business reopened safely or to adapt to the new COVID-19 pandemic to operate in a different manner. So reimbursements will be made available for purchases that date back to March 1st of 2020. And again, these are all purchases that were made to safely adapt or change your business to operate within the COVID-19 pandemic. So the program will also allow for future or planned future expenses, and they'll be reimbursed at the time of that expense through November 30th. However, you can still apply up front and then just put in the business plan that you have. You may need to purchase something along the lines of software to maybe schedule appointments, or paper menus for restaurants or other things to operate on a safer basis now that COVID-19 is a large consideration in your daily activities. So please keep an eye on the Arapahoe government website. We will be posting links to that grant program. And in the meantime, if you have any questions about the program, feel free to reach out to our email address at arapahoecaresgrant@arapahoegov.com. I'll say that one more time. That email address is arapahoecaresgrant@arapahoegov.com. So Chris, thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions throughout the remainder of the call, I'll be here to help answer those.
Wonderful. Well, don't go too far, because our next question I'm going to refer to you. This is from Donna, and she asks, when are in-person job fairs expected to start?
Oh, Donna, thank you. That is a great question. And a little bit of good news and bad news on that front. So there is no date planned for allowing in-person job fairs to be conducted. However, the Arapahoe Douglas Workforce Center has adapted in a virtual environment. A good example is we're holding basically weekly hiring events where we'll partner with an employer to set up Zoom calls, and we even have it set up to where you can go off into virtual rooms and hold interviews with candidates one-on-one. However, we're also challenging ourselves to do virtual job fairs. So on June 23rd, we actually have a partnership with the Arapahoe Community College and the Castle Rock Chamber of Commerce, and we're actually doing a large job fair that has 27 employers. And it's all going to be handled through Zoom, and people that are attending the job fair will be able to choose what business they'd like to go talk to. And so it's very unique, but the good news is we're adapting to the new environment. The bad news is that in-person job fairs probably won't happen for a pretty extended period of time. And unfortunately, we have not had a lot of requests from businesses to hold any in-person events. And right now, with social distancing and the current atmosphere, that would not be allowed. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Switching gears, going back to Melissa, we've got a couple more questions for you. The first is, will the indoor event guidance allow for schools to hold church services at capacities greater than 10?
Yes, this has come up a few times about a place of worship can host 50 people, but the school guidance says that schools can only host groups of 10 or fewer. And so it's this inconsistency with places of worship who use spaces within the educational setting like a gymnasium for their services. So one of the things that we expect updated in this order is provisions for higher education. We have been talking to the Department of Higher Education, who has been working with the state for guidance on summer classes. We do anticipate them to address education settings more generally. I do not know if that will allow for larger gatherings up to 50 within those settings, but I do encourage you to keep a close eye out for those updated orders, and then to participate in these roundtables, to reach out to our Business Reopening Task Force to see what the implications are. But those conversations are happening with the state about how we adjust to allow those, hopefully focusing on the space rather than the activity that's occurring, and allow greater gatherings to happen in those settings.
Thank you. This next question is something we hear a lot out in the field, and it is, if a business is concerned about how another business is operating, should this be reported, and if so, how?
Yes, that's a really fantastic question that actually hasn't come up on these calls very often, but the answer is yes. You should reach out to your local public health agency, so the Tri-County Health Department. You can reach out to our call center. They are operating Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they are taking complaints specifically about any violations. Anyone can make a complaint. We work to provide education to those businesses. So if we get a call, hey, my neighbor retailer, they're not implementing the protections, they're often crowded, we will reach out to them and provide them guidance on the requirements of the order, connect them to resources if needed, and just really focus on getting that business up to compliance. So we encourage you to reach out with that information so that we can target our education and support to those businesses who need it most. The phone number to call for our call center is 303. Sue, can you say the number to the call center?
Yes, our call center is 303-220-9200.
Thanks, Sue. I had my mind went blank for a minute. So that will go right to, that will get you to our call center, and we have folks that will take that information and will do outreach to help those businesses gain compliance.
Great. Thank you both, Melissa and Sue, for that. We want to bring back Stephanie Mufik again. We have a follow-up question about the CARES program grants. Debbie is asking, what are the qualifications to apply for the grant? Can you help us walk through that?
Absolutely. Qualifying businesses must have operated in a physical location in Arapahoe County for at least the last 12 months, and our guideline is June 1st, 2019. You must have between 1 to 500 employees, and you must be in good standing with regulatory agencies. And then we are also applying some priority. There's two different priorities to this grant. The first one is that we're going to fund Arapahoe County employers that are located within unincorporated Arapahoe County first, because they will not have access to the municipalities that have some CARES funding and grants available. And then the second award preference will go to employers who commit to retain or bring back employees with the use of those funds. So I hope that answers your question, which was a very good one. Thank you so much for that follow-up.
And thank you for answering it for us, Stephanie. Moving back to Melissa, this is a technical question. What should I do if I find out several days later, after an employee worked, that they were diagnosed with COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We have our communicable disease folks working very closely. If there is an outbreak, if you have 2 or more cases, at that point you would contact your local public health agency. But the really best course of action to take is to have that employee stay home for the recommended time frame from the end of symptoms or a negative test. And then anyone that they had contact with can just closely monitor for symptoms, but we don't ask anyone to isolate or not come to work or have the business closed unless it rises to a certain level, at which point the health department will contact you. But if you have any questions or concerns, that call center number they can connect you to our communicable disease folks and answer questions about your specific situation. So I'll just say that number again, 303-220-9200, and we're always happy to chat through any concerns that you may have and how to keep folks safe.
Great, thank you so much. We are down to our last couple of questions, so if you are on the phone and you would like to ask a question, you can still dial *3 to get connected to one of our operators, or if you're listening and watching online, you can enter it in the chat box and we'll get to you. Melissa, our next question is, this is the season for art fairs and craft fairs. Will this fall under outdoor events with the new orders coming out?
Yes, and that's one of the big industries, activities that it was the goal of this updated guidance to address. It's going to depend on the size that you have, that you're working in outdoors, but it does allow those activities to happen up to a certain number depending on the size. So check out that draft guidance, but it specifically says fairs, trade shows. So that's exactly what this new guidance is for.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Another fun question. When can we have activities in bars like karaoke, poker, darts, and bingo?
Yeah, I like that question too because, of course, it depends. It's not straightforward. So some of those activities like karaoke are riskier than others. So you have your shared equipment with karaoke. You have folks singing, which significantly projects aerosol into the air, and especially in an enclosed area. So having folks sing, rotating through, touching that microphone is much riskier than some of those other activities. Bingo is another one that falls into this unmentioned space. We hope to see some of those more general businesses addressed in this updated order. But some of those activities like a pool table or a dartboard, we have allowed this activity to occur so long as that space can be reserved just the same way you would do a table. And so if you reserve that pool table, you are able to maintain 6 foot of distance. So oftentimes 2 pool tables may be next to each other. This means that you likely can only use one if they're very close. But if you can reserve that in the same way you do a table, and that's where your table is in the restaurant that you're visiting, you can do that activity. Everything needs to be sanitized after use. So the table, the pool sticks, the pool balls, darts, they would need to be sanitized after use. But as long as you can reserve it just like a table. That does leave out things like games. So some of the bars, restaurants you go to, you may be able to pick up checkers, Monopoly, Connect 4, maybe some cards. Those are not permitted currently. They're too difficult to sanitize, and folks should be staying in smaller groups. So if you have a specific question that I didn't just address, because I know it gets a little wonky and in the weeds, please reach out with your specific question, and we're happy to chat through it, and also keep an eye out for this updated order, as it may touch on some of these activities.
Thank you so much, and we are almost done. We are so thankful to all of our hosts today. Let's do a little bit of a round robin. Melissa, are there any final things you'd like to share with us?
Really just encouraging you all to reach out. It's very helpful to us. Michelle mentioned this earlier. Hearing from you, understanding we're not experts in all of these industries, and there's so many different situations and circumstances and what ifs, and the real goal is to keep people safe. And so if we can keep folks safe, adhere to this process, gradually reopen, that's what we want, and that's what we're advocating for. And so please reach out to us. We want to hear about what's happening with you, what barriers you're encountering, what resources you need, because this, our Business Reopening Task Force, my job, the rest of the staff at Tri-County is really interested in helping our businesses. And so we want to make sure it's relevant to you and your work. And so keep reaching out. It's helpful to us as much as it's helpful to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Michelle Halstead from Arapahoe County also has a couple of closing remarks. Michelle?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining this call, and you know, Melissa said it best, but a couple additional resources to think about. If you're a business that wants the county to consider a variance request, email us at askac@arapahoegov.com, and you can find a lot of resource information on the Arapahoe County website, and that address is arapahoegov.com/COVID-19.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us, Michelle. Sue Hauk from Tri-County Health, any last words from you?
I would just echo what Melissa said. Reaching out to us really helps us to address some of those businesses that are not specifically called out in the orders. So there's, still sometimes confusion as to, well, where do I fall in this order? It doesn't specifically say my type of business. And that has really helped us to clarify for some. So really important to keep reaching out, especially if you don't see something that addresses your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. And our last contestant is Stephanie Mufik from Arapahoe Douglas Works. And if you wouldn't mind, as part of your closing remarks, also reminding us of the website for the Arapahoe CARES grants.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I would like to just reiterate that the grant opening date is going to be Monday, June 22nd. It will be open for a couple weeks or until the funding is spent. But the actual website to find the application is arapahoegov.com. Then you click on the COVID-19 updates, and from there, click on Arapahoe County CARES. And that will not be active until Monday. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through our email address at arapahoecaresgrant@arapahoegov.com. Thank you so much, Chris.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate all of our panelists being on today. And just to confuse you all more with one more web address, we're going to close out today. But if you would like a follow-up, you can also join us on the Arapahoe Douglas Works website, which is www.adworks.org/businesses. And if you look for the Arapahoe CARES Business Roundtable, you can enter in your information there, and you'll get a follow-up from one of us. We thank you so much for joining us today and hope everyone stays safe and well.